First, I just want to reiterate what I said to the court, that I'm very sorry for the actions that led me here to court today. I alone am responsible for them. And having lived with this for 5 years, it's a long time to be thinking about something nonstop and wishing you could go back. But you can't. You have to take responsibility for what I did, and I do that. And I am embarrassed and humbled and ashamed. And it's a cautionary tale of, even though there were thousands of pieces of legislation, reading every single one and being more aware, and there's no excuse. What I did, I take full responsibility for. I am grateful to all the people who are here, who supported me, and for everybody who wrote letters. And I'm hoping to be able to put this behind me and continue serving the city that I love, that gave me everything in my life that I have, for which I'm very grateful. And if you guys have questions and I can answer them, I will try to.
Joe, why didn't you recuse yourself from those votes?
It was a mistake. I should have. When I realized that I should have recused myself, I started to, but it was too late. And there's no excuse for it. I take full responsibility for it, and that's why I pled the way I did today to the court.
Did you realize the votes were benefiting Parkworks and Land Studio?
No. If I did, I would have recused myself, which I started doing after I was made aware of the investigation in the middle of the editorial board interview. You know, the ethics board began an investigation, and I found out about it during that interview, and immediately upon that realized that I needed to change, and I did, but obviously I should have been recusing myself for years before.
So you didn't realize that any of those contracts were going to Parkworks or Land Studio?
Not all the contracts that were there. As you know from the Board of Controls, they award things the way they do. Sometimes, like with the initial contracts that went to the Irish Cultural Garden, or the Glenville Ball Fields, or the Halloran Ice Rink, was before I was even married to Nora. The law states that if you're on a board, a nonprofit, and you're on council, you cannot vote on both. Ignorance is no excuse in violation of the law. The idea, though, that I benefited from that, I should have been more watchful. But as a non-paid, nonprofit board member, and as somebody who is voting for legislation that I think is important to the city, I should have clearly recused myself.
Often legislation is rushed through city council. Councilmen often don't have time to even read the legislation. Do you think this speaks to maybe some reforms city council needs?
This speaks to the fact that I should have known better and I should have done things differently. City council is an incredible institution that I was proud to serve, and the fact that I didn't read through the legislation is my fault and mine alone.
Did you guys ever get any conflict of interest training from city council? I mean, isn't that something that they give you guys as council members? They
do, especially toward the end of my term on council. It was regular. When I started on council, it wasn't as regular as it was, but again, a conflict of interest is a conflict of interest, and I should have recused myself.
What's the support that showed up today? I mean, it was like a who's who of Cleveland behind you today. I mean, how does it make you feel you're going through this and you have that kind of group behind you?
I'm very lucky to be able to know the people who are here today. Luckier the ones who wrote letters. It also makes it harder because you hate to disappoint the people who made you who you were. I meant it when I said that there's very few days that I wish my mom and dad weren't here. Today I'm happy that they're not. It's embarrassing. I'm somebody who worked hard to serve the people of the city of Cleveland, and I made a lot of mistakes, and that's what today was about, was correcting them. I'm honored that they're here. I'm grateful that they're here. I want to work harder now to regain their trust and the people that I loved.
How do you feel about the sentencing?
The judge passed down a sentence that was fair and will abide by it, and I'm grateful for the judge's sentence, and I'm grateful for the attorneys who represented me, because they really helped me understand the full ramifications of what we were doing today.
Joe, one more question. Didn't you co-sponsor some of that legislation?
So one of the questions that came up is the way that things get sponsored. The rules of order in council show that if something's in your ward geographically, you're immediately listed as a sponsor. You can't ask for your name to be removed, but often at council, when things get introduced, they're under your name the night of introduction. I should have asked for my name to be removed from anything dealing with it, but when you actually look in the rules of council, rule number 17, it clarifies that, and I think that's just important. I should have known that I should have pulled my name off of it.
Okay.
Didn't you say there was a change of plea?
The arraignment didn't allow me to plead guilty because of, I'm not a lawyer, I'm sorry, but that today was the day of when the plea could actually be entered. But from the minute that we had an agreement with the state, I was going to enter a plea and take responsibility for my actions. Again, actions that I alone took.
Joe, just to clarify, so were you aware that any of those 26 votes were benefiting the nonprofit, or some you were and some you weren't?
When I was on the nonprofit board, I was, and it's like I said in there, it's a wake-up call, right? You can be on a nonprofit board, get no money, and still you're not supposed to vote on it at council, and I should have known that, and that's something that I take responsibility for, and that's why we're here today.
Nora, a lot's been said about whether or not you benefited in any way in your position with the nonprofit. What would you like to say about that?
Just thank you to everybody who is here with us today, and we're looking forward to moving on.
Thanks,
I
everybody.
thought it was very unfair of the state to bring Nora Romanov into this. Clearly, Joe didn't know what was happening, and Nora was that much more removed. Norma is an upstanding and terrific asset to our city. Had nothing to do with this case. She did not personally benefit from this. The state's statements that her pay was somehow related to this was absolutely not the case. So I just like to support Nora, as I know her many friends and colleagues are doing it, and making it clear that she had nothing to do with this.